If you're looking for a podcast that packs in sound property advice, as well as offering you an insight into making the world of property effective and ultimately work for you, you're in the right place. Hosted by Arsh, the original property rebel. He's written an Amazon bestseller, created the Property Investor app, the UK's first, and is an experienced property mentor. More importantly, he talks the talk and walks the walk.
Hi and welcome to another episode of The Property Rebel with your host Arsh. And in today's session we're going to be talking about the pros and cons of property development. What is it that makes the strategy so attractive to so many, and what are the pitfalls that we face as a result of going into property development? So before we go into it, I want to say a quick hello and welcome to new subscribers, new listeners. Hopefully you enjoy the podcast. Hopefully you're enjoying the one cut take, which means that there's no editing involved, which means that you may get some ifs, ums and ahs, and maybe even some long pauses like this. But believe it or not, that's okay. It just makes it show that this is real and this is real content. So why should I talk to you about property development? First of all, give you a bit of a story. I've been involved in property for 19 years, and in that 19-year span, I've done some property development. And when we talk about that, is between 2004 and 2008, me and my business partners had a property development company. We were buying or acquiring pieces of land. Remember, I've said buying or acquiring. We'll talk about that in a second. So we were buying or acquiring piece of land, and we were going in, putting planning permission, and with a view of either converting the existing building or building from the ground up new dwellings, so new residential dwellings. We never did any commercial. It was predominantly residential. And we had some fantastic high times. We had some catastrophic lows, and I'm going to take you through both of them and why I think the pros and cons of property development, and more importantly, as a result of the catastrophic lows, why I vowed never to touch property development ever again. Now, just so that you know, when we talk about property development, it comes in all different kinds of forms. If you're doing a bit of a refurb, like let's say that you're turning a 2-bed house into a 3-bed by putting a bit of an extension, is that considered development? Technically, yes, because you're adding value to the property. I would potentially call that a refurb. So I consider development is where you're actually creating almost like a block of houses or a mini scheme of houses or a block of apartments. I did a refurb project where I took a grade 2 listed building and converted it into 6 high-end 1 and 2 bedroom flats. And I would thought that was the development. And I only completed that actually in 2020. I think they completed that tail end of 2019. So I'll talk you through some of those stories. So going back to my story, 2004, we built a property development company and we acquired some land. We started with one project initially where we bought an existing block of apartments. I think it had 12 apartments on at the time. We got planning permission to demolish the block and then built 24 one-bedroom flats on it. Now, at the time, the land was around 800,000, and we built it all out, and the gross development value, if anyone ever talks about GDV, gross development value, it was around £2.6 million. So there was a decent margin in it. Now, if you don't know anything about development, don't worry, because I'm going to try and keep it so that everyone can get involved on this podcast. So a developer's profit margin generally is roughly around 20%. So the lowest that someone should be looking to do a development for is 20%. Our highest was circa 33%. So our best one was when we achieved a 33% margin. But the key to it is how cheap you can buy the land, and the second one is how keen you are on your development costs. When I say keen, you've got to make sure that you keep everything, and everything is time and cost effective. So if you're running over on time, that means that you may have to end up paying the developers more or the builders more, which means that also if you've got funding on the development as well, your funding costs will be more as well. So it very much is that you're on a time scale and you're working within a budget. That's probably the best way of describing it. So they're things to keep you focused. So when you're developing something, if you think when you start to project and when you put your time scales together, if you think it's going to take 8 months, I would project for 12 months as a build personally. And then if you think it's going to take 6 months to sell, I would project 12 months. So that project that you thought was going to take roughly around 1.5 years, work on the basis of just over 2 years. And if you work your costings out on 2 years, you'll find that if it works on a 2-year budget and a 2-year time frame, and again, you do the same with your costings. If you think it's going to cost £1 million, put a contingency cost in there, put a 20% contingency cost in there. So now you've got to think it's going to be costing you around 1.2. So these are the things, these are the tips that I would give you, especially. Always overestimate, never underestimate, because if you underestimate, you're going to find that you're going to start to eat away in your margins. Next thing you know, your development's not making money. In actual fact, you're going to be losing money. And especially in a time where we are today with COVID and everything, no one's going to know what's happening with values. At the moment, we're in this little mini boom, property boom. I call it a property bubble. And the reason why I call it a property bubble is because the government keeps pushing money into it, giving us the stamp duty breaks, pushing money in terms of furlough, pushing money in terms of bounce back loans and everything else. They're giving us a load of support, but that can only happen for a certain amount of time. And I've documented that quite well. As soon as that happens, we will fall into a property depression. Unfortunately, sorry to be the voice of doom there. So, going back onto why people do property development. So going back to my story, we bought lots of plots of land. We built, and the first one where the gross development value was around £2.6 million, we actually ended up with a profit on that one. That was probably one of the, I would say, more profitable jobs. So based on the factor of £2.6 million, sorry, I've just got my trusty calculator out on there. We walked around with a margin between 25 and 30%. So we made in excess of £500,000, which is good, to be fair, but it took 2 years to do that. It took 2 years to do that, which, let's face it, how many people are going to make £500,000 over 2 years? Not many, but if you do it in one project, do you mind sitting out for 2 years knowing that you're going to clear that on the back end of it? Absolutely. So that was great. So we started to become more confident. The first project, we were finding our feet. We were finding the developers that we wanted to work with. We made lots of mistakes. And as a result, we started to move forward and we found the builders. We understood what we did wrong initially. We started to correct those for projects number 2, 3, 4, and 5. So fast forward to 2008. So in between, we did quite a few developments and we did quite well out of it. And we thought, yeah, okay, we could be an award-winning developer. 2008, I think we had at the time around 200 units, so 200 flats in the build process. And straight away with the market crash between 2007 and 2008. Now, as I said earlier, the average developer's profit margin is around 20%. Now, when we were selling our flats, as a result of the crash and the price decrease, the surveyors, the mortgage surveyors, so people that wanted to buy our flats, their surveyors would come round and instantly they were starting to down value our flats by circa 20 to 25%, which meant that for every flat we were building, we were losing money. So as a result, we had to close that business, because what's the point building all these assets if we're going to lose money? So we had, the good thing, which we'll talk about in leverage with property development and everything, you can get leverage on the land. And the truth be told is that we were over leveraged. We bought too many sites. We had too many outgoings. So at one point we had 5 sites, which means that we had five site managers. We had 5 build teams. As well as that, we built quite an infrastructure for the business. We had a managing director, we had a land director, we had a marketing director, we had a person that looks after all the sites, so a site consultant, and our outgoings were stupid. So in that respect, if you're looking to do it on a larger scale, we had people going out finding the sites. We had people that were appraising the sites. We had our own architect team. We actually had our own legal team. And what we found is that it wasn't cost effective. So we closed that in 2008. We lost a lot of money in the meanwhile. I don't mind saying that, because let's talk about the good, the bad, and definitely the ugly. So we lost a lot of money. I think we lost around £8 million worth of personal wealth. So that was us personally lost £8 million worth of cash. So that was crazy times, absolutely crazy, to a point where we nearly went bankrupt. When I say nearly went bankrupt, we actually were on the brink of bankruptcy. And I vowed never to be in that position again. Now, it's not all bad. Property development, if you do it correct and you do it in the right markets, etc., it can be extremely, extremely profitable and extremely beneficial. But again, it comes down to you and what you're intending to do on your property journey. So let's go through some of the pros. It can potentially give you a high return on investment. And the reason why I say that is because one of the biggest advantages of property development is the potential to generate significant return on your investment by identifying a property development opportunity that is likely to deliver a desired level of return, which can be extremely challenging, especially for first-time developers. So, where else can you go off and buy a piece of land? I can give you quite a few examples. One of almost like funeral directors, where I bought the land for 100 grand. I got planning permission for it, and the land was then worth the best part of £500,000 just by getting the planning permission. And this is one of the strategies that I use now going forward. I don't develop, I acquire land, I get the planning, and then I sell it with its new gain. It's called subject, and we don't actually buy the land, we just get the option on the land as well. So if you want to know a little bit more about that, feel free to get in contact with me. One of the good things with property development as well is that sometimes it can be often a shorter length of investment. It's shorter length, but it's not necessarily a liquid, I should say. And the reason why I say that is because when you're doing a buy-to-let, or whether you're buying a HMO, or whether you're buying a property, generally you're buying it for the next 10, 15, 20 or 25 years. However, when you're building something, chances are that you're probably in and out of that development, as I said earlier, within 1 to 2 years. And you could be in and out, and you could have your money back out into the bank, providing that you sold the site and everything's gone. So one of the other benefits about about property investment, or property development, should I say, is investment leverage. Means that if you buy the site well, you can potentially leverage the development cost from the bank. So just give me an example. Look, there are lots of development finance companies out there that will lend on a development. What they will look at is how much you purchased the site for. What have you got on the site? So in terms of planning permission, what scheme have you put together? Is it a housing scheme? Is it a development scheme? Is it a commercial scheme? They will then look at the gross development value. They will then look at the exit strategy. Are you looking to buy, build and sell? Are you looking to buy, build and rent? Because they want to know the viability and what's the potential of you selling these units quickly so that they can get their money back. More importantly, they have a look at, if they think that that's a possibility, there's a chance that they may lend you up to 60-70% of the purchase price for the land, and also lend you up to 100% of the development finance. So when you look at it like that, let's just imagine that a piece of land has cost you, let's say, £300,000. I don't know where that figure come from, so I'm going to put that in my calculator. £300,000, and based on the fact of that they lend you 60%, that means they're going to lend you roughly around £180,000, which means that to get involved in this deal, you need £120,000, which equates to the 40% deposit towards the purchase. Then you need some stamp duty, then you need some legal costs, then you may need some finance arrangement costs. So on the basis that you can borrow £180,000, you need £120,000 to get involved. And then on the back of that, providing that the deal stacks up for the funders and the lenders, shall we say, they may lend you up to 100% of the development costs, which means that in essence you're all in at 120, maybe the best part of 130 grand when you're taking some other costs. Off the back of that, you then go off and build it. You need to demonstrate that you've got some experience in developments, or you've got to demonstrate that you know how to manage a team who will develop and project manage the whole thing from start to finish. Let's face it, a bank will not lend a load of money to someone that has literally never done a development before. So you may need to demonstrate that you've done some refurbs before. So whether you've taken a house from a single let into a HMO or into a small block of flats. So you've got to show a progression of some form of development. They won't just say, I'll tell you what, Arsh, you've never done it before, but here's a chunk of cash, go and have a practice. And if you lose money, don't worry about it. That's not how they operate, unfortunately. And that was one of the reasons why we had the credit crunch and the crash of 2007, 2008. So let's look at some of the cons. They're all the benefits of property development. So it's lovely owning this lovely shiny building that's just been built, and you feel a sense of achievement, or definitely a proud moment when you've come off site and you look at it and think, you know what, I built that, I designed that, and I've gone through every stage in the process. I've been there, I've got that badge, I've pat myself on the back. Now the negatives of property development is that it's not very liquid, and I say that with the best of respect. If you're a property developer and you're listening at this, you're probably nodding your head right now. You've got to see a lot of money go out before you see it come back in. It's not like you get instant access to your money. Property development may not be the right option for you, as unlike investing in shares, you cannot sell at a moment's notice. The way that you exit is simply by selling the development. And generally speaking, let's just work on round numbers. If you built a block of 10 apartments, if you work on the basis of a 20% margin, that means that your margin or your profit in that job is actually 2 of the flats out of the 10 based on 20%, which means that you've got to sell the other 8 first, and then you've got to sell your 2. Now, think about this as a developer. How many times have you been to a sales office, and how many times have you been to a sales office and have you seen that last few remaining units, we will do a deal on those units? All the time, right? And the reason being is because they're now trying to get off site and they're prepared to discount their last few units. But hang on, the last few units are the ones that they own. So therefore, they're now become a motivated seller to get off site. If you're a developer, you're definitely nodding your head at this, because let's face it, by the time almost like the end of 2 years, you've got these last 2 units. Yes, they're your profit in the job. You just want to get off site now. But however, in order to do that, you're potentially cutting your profit margin as a result. So one thing I really hate about developments is the fact that you're the person to be paid last. Throughout the whole project, you're paying out everyone. You're paying out the architect, you're paying out the planning fees, you're paying out the developers, you're paying out the project managers, you're paying out all the labourers, you're paying out all the sales staff, you're paying out the estate agents, you're paying out the solicitors. The last person that gets paid is you. I forgot to mention, all throughout the whole process, guess who gets paid? The bank. So I now, when I do my property projects, I make sure I get paid first. And in everything that I do in property, I make sure I'm the person that gets paid first and not last. So in property development, expect unexpected problems and setbacks, because there will be problems. There may be something that you may not have come across. So on the basis of us doing a development on a grade 2 listed building, we had some issues with regards to some windows. I wanted to put in UPVC windows. The conservation officer wanted us to put in some wooden windows to meet the grade 2 listing of the building. We had to use a certain style of slate tile to enhance the heritage of the building. Now, I'm not saying that if it's your first development, don't do a grade 2 listed building. They are very troublesome. However, with grade 2 listed buildings, you've got the space. So again, take that into consideration. You will get setbacks, you will get time issues, you will come across problems. These are all part of property development. They come across unforeseen issues, which will build up the development costs of the project and also the timeline of it. One of the things that I say, delays in completing the project. So delays can come in many forms. So you may have got your planning, you may have got your builders on site. Now, unfortunately, if we get blizzards of weather like snow, etc., that can hold up projects. If you're waiting for external sources to come in, so like your electricity supplies, your gas supplies, your water supplies, internet supplies, etc. Again, these are all big delays that can hold up projects and stop you from going any further. And as a result of these delays, the longer you delay, the more you pay to the bank in terms of financing costs, and therefore potentially reducing their annualized returns. Finally, barriers to entry. Many first-time developers overlook the costs associated with buying and selling a property. Now, what we say about that, we forget to look at things like the finance costs, or they forget to understand how much the finance cost is, the intro fees, the exit fees, the sales costs, and everything associated with that. So you've got to be very sharp on your figures, especially because we're in COVID-19. No one knows what's going to happen around the corner, especially with regards to sales values. So that's definitely something to take into consideration. So there we have it, guys. Hopefully you've enjoyed that session. It's a little bit longer than normal, which hopefully you've taken away a load of golden nuggets. There are lots of good points about property development. There's definitely lots of bad points to consider about property development. If you're shy and you're not the risk averse, property development is definitely not for you. However, if you like a challenge, property development is definitely for you. So as always, hopefully you've enjoyed it. If you like it, please share it with your friends. Please mention us on social media, etc., and it'd be highly appreciated. As always, if you like free content and you want more free content, I've got a very active YouTube channel, so you can find me. My name's Arsh Ilahi. You can find me on YouTube. I've got hundreds of videos on there, and it's completely free. We put out a new video every Thursday at 4 p.m. We do the podcast every Tuesday at 2 p.m. hopefully. If you can subscribe to both channels, that'd be great. Finally, why not find me on social media? You can find me on Instagram, you can find me on Facebook, LinkedIn and Twitter under the name Arsh Ilahi. It'd be great to contact with you. And then, not to mention, I'm sure you probably all know by now that I'm the founder of the UK's first property investment platform called Property Investor. It's the UK's first platform which showcases property deals all over the UK. So that may be below market value deals, rent to rent deals, lease option deals, development deals, to mention just to name a few. So I call it the right move of investment opportunities. If you like the thought of that and you want to see them, completely free for you to do so. All you got to do is download the app. It's called Property Investor. So if you've got a smartphone, an Apple phone or an Android phone, go to your app store and type in Property Investor. If you still like to look at stuff on a big screen, why don't you go to our website, www.propertyinvestorapp.co.uk. Again, it's completely free and everything's there right in the palm of your hand. So on that note, guys, as always, I wish you to be safe and well, and I look forward to speaking to you all very soon. Thank you and bye-bye.
The large majority of people make a positive change if they take immediate action. So act now. Download the Property Investor app and join Arsh on his social media channels to excel your property journey.